I see Mad Maxisms a lot.
The thing that George is leaving us is a legacy in which so many other filmmakers have borrowed on, have been influenced by.
Mad Max has really inspired fans, producers, directors, cinematographers, everything.
The place looks like something out of a Mad Max movie.
And it's like a scene from Mad Max.
She was describing some Mad Max America.
Looked like a scene out of Mad Max.
If you want to describe a dystopian future of collapse and environmental decay and resources running out, just simply refer to it as a Mad Max scenario.
What would happen if we were like legit Armageddon, Mad Max, nuclear war? Like, how far are we away from that?
We decided with my partner Byron Kennedy to make a feature film, and that was Mad Max. In making that film, I thought, I'm definitely not cut out to make movies. It was so difficult. It's by far the most difficult film I've ever had to make. We had very little money and we had no experience, but we had enthusiasm and had really worked hard in its preparation. Everything went wrong. It felt like going for a walk with a really big dog, and you want to go this way and the dog drags you off this way.
I could sense that on set he would often just be on his own and just sort of thinking, and you could see that he was overwhelmed, that he was stressed. If you think about these mad actors, like they gave them their bikes in Sydney and they rode all the way down to Melbourne in a pack, headed by the wonderful Hugh Keays-Byrne, who is of course a method actor and had come out from the London Shakespeare Company to Australia, just a wonderful, wonderful actor.
The Night Rider. That is his name.
And they were those characters from the moment they got the parts. Handling that as a first-time director on set was quite difficult, but he did it, and they just kept on, and pushed and pushed and pushed through.
Well. It's our little mother.
That scene where they've got the baby and I'm there, like Hugh, such a generous actor, just gave me so much to be freaked out about.
What do you want from me?
Don't change the subject.
Hold it! Right there!
I hate guns.
I was a young actor and nobody had a job, and I thought, what the hell? So that was an attraction enough. It could have been a commercial for toilet cleaner. I would have gone for it. You know, it was like 2 pages of dialogue with a big speech and stuff. And I was like, yeah, sure. So I went to the other room and I just kind of got a gist of what it was. And I came out and just kind of ad-libbed what I could remember. And I guess they bought it.
Look, he was very hardworking, very focused. He spent a lot of time with George, looking at all aspects of it. We got on exceptionally well, just as friends. So it does make it easier. Sometimes a friendship can get in the way of chemistry though, you know? But I don't think that happened with us. We just got on with the job and really enjoyed every moment of it, really.
The cast did a lot of their own motorcycle riding at speed next to cars, putting themselves in quite dangerous positions.
You know, the speeds you see are the speeds that we did. You know, when you look at David Eggby on the back of the bike. He got no helmet on, he's just got the camera on his eye and that.
Now this is a shot I did handheld on the back of a motorbike. Now if you look, the speedometer's at 180 kilometres an hour, I think it is, or thereabouts, really rocketing along, and I'm handheld on, and Terry Gibson was riding the bike leaning over, and I'm sort of holding this camera, just leaning on his back, using the windbreak from the tiny windshield. And but it was the only way to get the shot, because otherwise if you'd have fixed the camera to the bike, it would have gone over and the horizon wouldn't have stayed horizontal, you know.
One of the stunt riders, Dale, where the motorbike hits him in the head. Well, that was for real. That actually happened. But I remember Byron sitting there and watching it over and over and over again, you know. But he was all right, Dale's all right. He's lived to tell the tale.
They took his helmet off after that, and there was blood coming out of his ears and his nose.
That was a jet engine that they had in that car. And so they were all behind screens and everything when it happened. And then when they came out, the car was nowhere to be seen. Somebody said, oh, well, maybe it's taken off, you know, like it's taken off. It was in some paddock over the hill, you know. But it's pretty Australian, don't you think? I think it's really Australian to step out on the edge that way. I was not sure what we were going to see, and nobody really expected it, not even George, to do as well as it did. He wondered who would want to watch it. Do you know, you do that with your work, don't you, on a creative sense? You look at it and you go, oh gosh, like I've blown it. This is like, who's going to want to see this? Is this going to do anything? And then of course it went to Japan. In Japan they thought it was a samurai movie. I'd never seen a Kurosawa movie, but somehow it resonated. The French saw it as a Western on wheels. It tapped into the collective unconscious in the typical way that Joseph Campbell so brilliantly described.
There's two great moments in my life, really. One is when I went to see the Rolling Stones in 1966 and seeing the very first Mad Max. I was utterly stunned, shocked, sort of pretty much devastated at the horror of it all, when in fact it was brilliant. When I got a call from my agent that George Miller wanted to audition me for a part in the second Mad Max, they gave me a little bit of a script and they said, look, just go out and see what you can do about learning some of this. It's the scene where I come out of the sand and confront Max for the very first time.
Don't hurt the snake! Put it down! Gently. Nice. Now the iron.
One of the things that George was really good about is, okay, this is your character, there's the script, you know, there's the dialogue. Now, this is the world in which we're living in. It's a dystopian world. It's a world, you know, where oil is rare, it's a rare commodity, an apocalypse has occurred. But he says, you go away and you work up your character.
Looks like I got myself some gasoline, eh? Hey?
How and why would your character exist in this wasteland? So I sort of went away and I worked up that I had a past, that I was probably a very dodgy car salesman from the Northern Territory. I saw it as one of those westerns, those classic old 1950s westerns where you had the hero and he had his offsider. He was that bridge between the hero and those real people out there in the cinema. That's the way I saw him. There were guys with mohawks on and tats and heavy-duty leather everywhere, and I'm thinking, this isn't me. this isn't me at all.
You can clearly see with Norma's costume design in Mad Max 2, you can see the punk influence. Of course, Norma was quite heavily involved with the punk scene in London. You can clearly see that. It reflects in the work that she's done in several of her films as well, you know. When you look at the costumes that Norma put together, there's nothing sci-fi about the costumes. When you look at them individually, you know, you've got a set of gridiron pads, some baseball pads, you know, and then you've got the overalls that the bad guys in the buggies are wearing. I mean, even down to Wes's costume, one of the main bad guys, carpet underlay as part of his costume. Who would have thought of carpet underlay? But when you look at what she did, what she achieved, absolutely incredible. And you couldn't imagine the characters wearing anything else than what they did.
I think she was like a blotting paper, like a sponge. I think she had soaked up everything from punk to rock and roll to very sophisticated stuff as well. Her knowledge in that head of hers was brilliant.
It was crazy. I mean, imagine being 8 years old and you're surrounded by all these characters. These guys took over Broken Hill when we were doing this. Like, it was an incredible sort of scene. I was 8, so I had fun. I had time to run around the compound and you know, do whatever I wanted and hop in the vehicles, and it was amazing. Being with Mel, and he would look after me, and we would have a laugh and joke around, so he was fantastic.
Go up there and growl at the camera. Right down the lens. Run up to it.
It really didn't hit me how big my part was until I was sitting down watching the premiere. First few names, you know, Mel Gibson, Vernon Wells, Bruce Spence, Emil Minty. That really made me sort of go, wow, I am such a significant part of this film. And yeah, I guess if you wipe my character out of this film, it mightn't have been the same. I put that down to George Miller. He's just an absolute genius on what he brought out of every character in Mad Max. He was able to get things out of me that, you know, not many other people could.
There's a great moment for me personally. I had to come in and do the post-syncing. There I am, ready to put it down, and it was one of those sequences in the chase towards the end. And when I saw it, I was just yelling and screaming, and the sound booth going, oh my God! And the action on the screen, I'd seen it for the first time, and it just blew me away. I think the first Mad Max film was a watershed, but I think to a certain degree, George was really showing his wares even more so with Mad Max 2.
For its time, it was groundbreaking. No one had done anything like this before.
What struck me was this film is either going to die in the arse or it's going to be the biggest goddamn hit. It hit a nerve, which, look at it, it resonates today.
I think it's a safe way to just let your inhibitions out a little. It's timeless, you know, those themes of survival and grief.
It was all about the angst for me when it came out back in the 80s.
Yeah, just everything. Look around, it's like if you can dress up like this, it's a good day, isn't it?
We'd never seen anything like it before. Like, it really created the whole post-apocalyptic genre that you've seen repeated again and again.
It just gripped us. It was homegrown. It was all about a world that was Australia, but it wasn't.
It's so quintessentially Australian. I think it's something Australia's really proud of. It's known around the world.
Australia is Mad Max for me. And Mad Max is Australia.
I like motorbikes.
I love cars and motorcycles, everything.
We literally landed, we came straight out to Broken Hill here. And they were like, oh, you know, first time in Australia, you're going to do Sydney Harbour Bridge? No, we're off to Silverton and go and see Eggby at the Mad Max Museum.
We've got a couple of original pieces here, a little towing car that was used in the film to pull the Interceptor into the compound in the scene where Max gets taken captive. The owner of what was left of the Gyrocopter was kind enough to allow us to actually put it all back together. We had to add a few parts, but you got the original engine seat and tanks and things on there. Here's a couple of original buggies from the film. This is an original one from a Broken Hill local. He actually phoned me up and said, I've got one of the buggies from the original film, would you like to put it on display? And he brought it up for me, which was great. We actually have the original bus. That's the original gate that they used on the compound. That's actually the original oil pump from the film as well. But I suppose the piece that a lot of people talk about and have talked about over the years is actually, this is the double Interceptor. They actually call it the Holy Grail. So this is the one that did most of the work in this film, but of course, as you can probably see, this is the one that rolled off the road and then down into the gully and then of course was blown up. When we started to build a museum, people became aware of what we were doing. I think they were pretty shocked that they had this mad Englishman, or the mad Pom they used to call me, that had moved halfway around the world because of a film. We've been so surprised by the amount of people that have come through here and chatted to us about Mad Max and that have attended events, you know, make the effort to attend these events, but it just brings like-minded people together, you know, that actually just love these movies. And I'm so thankful now because it's brought me to one of the beautiful parts of this region, you know, and just be 2 minutes from the Monday Lookout where some of the film was shot, which is beautiful.
This is like a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like we've come to Mecca.
Yeah, holy ground.
I see Mad Max as the gift that keeps on giving. Definitely for George.
I think George was born to make movies. Working with him on Mad Max 2, I was in awe of him. I know it's sort of a word that's bandied around maybe a little bit too much these days, but I really sincerely believe that George is a genius.
I really have fond memories of George Miller, and after that time I met him a few years back and I rang my wife and I just started bawling my eyes out. I was crying. It was like I'd met like my real father or someone for the first time. It was such an emotional experience that I got. So that's the impact that George had on me as a child. But it's amazing to be back here again, feel what the fans feel. That to me is humbling. It's a fantastic experience.
It actually blows me out that it had the effect that it had. Yeah, it actually amazes me that I was there and part of it.